welcome back to the channel where we all can learn and grow together. We're out here in the shop, but I started an old project at my mother-in-law's. Before I started this YouTube channel, I was building her a vanity, and that kind of ended up taking the back burner for some other projects. And it seems like it keeps getting the back burner, but I decided since I now got this space usable and can start doing projects, might as well start with the oldest one and also the one that took the most of the back burners. I got a few other projects after this, but basically what's happening is I got the top here. It's in my basement right now. I'm doing epoxy coating on the top of it, and that's going to take 72 hours, basically 3 days to dry. So I wanted to get that out of the way, so at least while that's drying I could start doing some other stuff in the shop. Okay, right here I'm trying to use a palm sander, but it really wasn't working for me for the greatest. Usually does a pretty good job, but it's being pretty slow. So I decided to go with a belt sander. What I'm doing is removing some excess epoxy from doing a first coat epoxy on this top, and the belt sander ended up doing a fairly decent job at removing it quickly. The belt sander has probably 100 grit sandpaper on it, and it's just me moving the board around and getting all the way around and getting all the clumps of excess epoxy drips. And this is where I started sanding. I used both 800 grit and 1,000 grit sandpaper. Uh, didn't really show it in the camera, but I did take it outside and use the water spigot and rinsed off a lot of the excess residue. Okay, I done moved the project to a different area. I'm going to be kicking up some sawdust around here while the time frame that needs to dry as far as when I pour the new epoxy. So I can't really set it up in here because it's going to get too much dust in it in here. So what I did is I moved it down to my basement. It pretty much stays at one temperature, even though there's no real heat or cooling down there, but it does manage to stay, it seems to be pretty warm right now, even though at nighttime it's pretty cold outside, but it's still pretty warm down there. And then during the summer it's staying pretty cool, so somehow it does stay at an average temperature down there, which is really good for the epoxy to set up. It does take 3 days. So, but we're going to go down there real quick. I'm going to mix the epoxy up and try and put the final layer on there. Again, this is my first time trying to do this type of application, so it's definitely a learning experience for me. And as everything else I do is definitely probably a little unorthodox, but at the end I hope the result still comes out the same. And I hope this is something that my mother-in-law is going to be able to enjoy once I finish. So we're going to go downstairs and we're going to mix epoxy and we're going to pour this and allow it 3 days to dry, and we'll see what the results looks like. So let's hope for the best. So right here I started filling in some of the parts where when I did the first coat of epoxy kind of just ran through some of the areas where when I put this board together, some areas didn't get as good of a glue job, and when I did the first layer of epoxy, a lot of the epoxy just ran through. So I ended up putting painter's tape on the bottom side, and hopefully that'll help it have more of an even coat and fill in better. I do apologize for the glare. I didn't realize with that window being right there that ended up creating quite a glare. I try to play with different camera angles and color filters, but it's kind of hard to work with once I realized there's a glare in the video. But I didn't want to leave this part out of me using a torch to clarify the epoxy from the fogginess and also to get air bubbles out. This process actually surprisingly works really, really well. I was very pleased on how this is turning out. And this here was me switching camera angles, but I was just showing the finished project, and very pleased with it so far. And this is going to take 72 hours, basically 3 days to dry and to cure and harden. And then we'll be able to see how it looks after it dries and revisit this. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the vanity from the old workshop, and we can start sanding and staining on that and doing the finished work, and then attach this top to the vanity. Until then, uh, stay awesome, stay safe, find your start, reach your goals, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.